to another one of our videos where today we're going to be looking at why unilateral exercises are so important. And actually, funnily enough, you can devise more strength from a single arm or single leg exercise than you can from two, which sounds crazy, but it's true. So unilateral exercise, so this is deadlifting. This would be a traditional deadlift with two legs, two arms, or really more the legs than the arm, but and this is the single leg deadlift. So both deadlifts, in the single leg one, there's the potential to lift much more through the sum of one leg than two. I know that even though the weight here is much bigger, this isn't the same person by the way, but there's a real phenomenon which we're going to explain to you in a second, which really is a secret to developing true strength and just incredible, and correcting asymmetries and potential problems as well. So there's a lot of benefits to be gained from both exercises, but I think the unilateral ones are very underestimated by many people. So and we'll explain why. So there's two schools of thoughts. Most people believe to get true strength is just to lift more. So your typical bench press, squats, deadlifts, where you can apply the maximum amount of load and lift as much as you can. And you definitely can gain strength. There's no two ways about it. You're definitely getting stronger. On the other side of it, there's people who believe it's more beneficial to use the single leg exercises to correct out the muscle imbalances and asymmetries, which they definitely do a better job of than these ones. These ones actually can encourage more problems, not always. But this is where we might see single leg squats, single leg pulls, single leg push, all those different things. And sometimes these go into the realm of a little, very complicated and, in the sake of core strength training and stuff. But there is a purpose to both, and funnily enough, it's not always the heaviest one that makes you stronger. So I wouldn't really say which one's better, because they're both good. It's just knowing when to use them. So there's pros and cons to both of them. The best programs tend to use a combination of them. I tend to use a combination of the two of them all the time. So it all just depends on the person and the situation in front of me. So it depends on what they're coming to see me for. If they're coming with injury, then it might be a bit different. I might use unilateral, it might be too difficult. I might need to use the simple one to get to the unilateral. In other cases, it might be for sports and something, I might be definitely working mainly unilateral, where they're in their prior training to see me, they were mainly doing bench presses, where I know I'm going to get more benefit from other things. So it just depends on who it is. The one thing that's interesting though is, like many people, I always thought the single arm stuff was more for rehab and the heavy stuff was more for sports, but in anything it's probably a bit more unilateral for everyone, to be honest, and I'll help to explain this a bit more in a minute. But the main thing to understand here is there's a phenomenon called the bilateral limb deficit, and the definition is written here, which is when the sum of the torque or force generated by each limb individually in the unilateral condition is greater than generated by both limbs simultaneously, which is bilateral. This is called the bilateral limb deficit. So in simple language, what this means is, if a person is able to squat more than half of what they can on two legs, then they're actually stronger with one foot on the ground than with two, if you divided the total weight by two for the bilateral exercise. So let's say you could single leg squat, or say a split squat of 70 kilos, but I could only do a back squat of 100 kilos. So the two legs are really only able to do 50 when they're together, but when they're individual they can do 70, which is crazy, because the single leg one is much harder. Coordination wise, it's just so many more things can go wrong with it. It doesn't make sense that you could lift more on that one leg. So this is where you're actually exposing a single leg to greater than it can when it's shared with the other. That's why it's called like a paradox, I suppose you could say. So I know in my own training, a single arm chest press, I can lift way more with one arm than I can with two. And again, the split squat and lunges, I'm much stronger on those than I am with the two leg one. I can lift a hell of a lot more on both of them. I feel like I have a lot more freedom. I get better range. Yeah, and it's just a lot of stuff that's going on. researchers have been trying to look into this for ages, and even a lot of the leading experts have changed some of their methods, having seen this in their own training. This is where, like, sometimes science hasn't caught up to the people who are working with it. Mike Boyle's here, and this is a good quote you can read, where he's seen like that this is actually on the front cover of his book. He likes it that much. But he's seen the same thing, and even some of his athletes can split squat and front squat with the same weight. It's crazy. But like he says, I know it's impossible, but it seems impossible, but it's not, because he's seeing it every day. So that's an example. In terms of back pain and injury and how that works, this is from Stuart McGill. You can read all this if you want, but basically he just measured some of the world's strongman competitors to see the benefits of what happens when they do the two leg and single leg, and again with the strongmen, and these guys are incredibly strong, but they were able to push some incredible things, but they were able to do more with one leg than they could with two. And this is a case of like the suitcase walk, or farmers walks with two arms, and the suitcase walk is with one. They were able to lift more with the one than the two. And he's saying, how could they do that? It's impossible. Where did the strength come from? And it's basically the QL on the other side, in the obliques, lifting to keep a strong pelvis. But and that's just an interesting phenomenon. So in his mindset, he would say, well, I get more benefit for training unilateral with this particular exercise, but not always. Remember, sometimes the unilateral can create shearing force and create pain, but in terms of pure strength, he's going to get more benefit from doing one than two. So now where this sort of applies to sports and stuff, so this is where I see a lot of people just working on back squats and deadlifts and bench press. The first two are great exercises, the third one not so much. But they're good exercises. But when you think about sports, how many times do you see athletes in sports jumping and landing on two legs at the same time? I can't really think of anything. So it's like AFL football, pretty much most of the time running and jumping on forward and jumping off one leg. And there's a basketball, say a slam dunk, for example. You're always on one leg. You're always jumping and landing on one leg all the time. Lateral movements. There's really very little time you ever do anything with two legs. So I don't know the benefit of training like that, how it relates to what you actually really need. So other than, say, rowing, where you might use two legs, I can't think of anything else where that actually happens. So like I said before, it's not to say that they're bad or a waste of time. They're still needed. It's just to make the point that if you're only training with 2 feet and 2 arm, but you competed in a completely different fashion, you may not be reaching your potential or really devising the strength that we've seen previously from those other examples. So, and they're the ones you actually really need anyway, so it makes more sense to train with them. In terms of, like, if I break it up into upper body and lower body, if we look at the leg first, so single leg strength is massive. So for sports, it's where the strength, speed, balance come from, but most importantly, injury prevention, because most of the injuries we see in sports occur, if for the lower limbs, occur in a single leg stance or from single leg landing and cutting angles. This is where ACL tears are blown out. So to be spending a great deal of time becoming amazingly good at these exercises is vital. It's not like a luxury, and it's not like something you do after you've done other things. It's the thing you should be doing first, because it's the one thing that's really going to separate you from being on the field or not, and also that's going to give you the strength and the speed and the extra performance you're looking for. So I really just don't understand why more athletes don't spend more time with these sort of, professional people probably do, but the amateurs really are very ignorant to the power of this one exercise. So in terms of the glutes, which we all know are very big, much a powerhouse in protecting the knees and the hips and the lower back, and play a vital role in everything, they're actually activated the most in a single leg stance. So again, it's just telling you this is exactly where we need to do. And the single leg strength is very specific, so the double leg exercises don't really utilise the stabilisers and the pelvic chain as much as they do when you're on one. So the glute medius in particular is they're playing a huge role So his glute max is the large one. The glute medius on the top here, this is the one that's very much activated in the single leg stance. So again, if weakness through this area leads to potential energy leaks, which leads to poor performance and eventually injury. So again, with the single leg foot stability and hip function are hidden when the two leg exercises, or the squat and the deadlift. So these are great exercises, but these problems here are not as revealed as big a problem as when we see people do it with one. So again, they're great exercises, and you might need to use the build up to the other ones, but you really need to look at the single leg stuff to effectively correct any underlying problems with how you're moving. So with the upper body, well, we've seen the single leg exercise is great, but we've found with the upper body, people might be just stuck in the mindset of just going heavy with the bench press and chin-ups and just trying to really crank out heavy with two arm things all the time. And you definitely, you're going to build strength and muscle size. There's no doubt about it. But I doubt that you're really going to improve the peak performance of things where there's, again, in sports, there's baseball, throw-up, tennis, serving, basketball. Again, it's like one arm. It's not as much power as needed as these two sports, but you're definitely not going to be able to derive the timing and the stability of the joints, especially the shoulder, is such a complex joint. So if we determine that the single leg in sports, rarely do we see 2 feet and 2 jumping, then we rarely see 2 arm things. I don't really ever see that. But so I mentioned here baseball, cricket, tennis, layups, and shooting, even dribbling and basketball. So the bilateral might give you the strength, but won't be relevant to how you want to be able to move better and increase your power. So the timing's more important than the load. That's the key. All right. So it's not about load; it's about moving faster, moving more effectively. If you're injured, by the way, it's really the same thing. So if you're watching this and you've got an injury, it's really the lack of timing and poor stability that's developed the injury. It's not the lack of strength. Because if it was lack of strength, then we would see people who are really strong never get injured, and they get injured all the time. So it's not strength; it's poor stability, poor timing. All right. So when we work with the singles, you'll see that you start to develop what's known as the slings. These slings, and there's 4 of them, help us to move more efficiently, produce more force, and they all share a common theme. These 4 slings: unilateral movement. And these are the 4 slings here. So there's an anterior sling, a posterior sling, a lateral sling, and a longitudinal sling. And you can see every single one of them has a one leg, or a split stance, one arm, a contralateral arm action, and another contralateral arm action. So they're all devising different slings. And there's videos and articles. You can look in the link in the description of the video here to see more about these. But these are the 4 slings that really determine how we move most efficiently. And this is core strength. So summing all this up, if just to keep the video shorter, I didn't include all of the videos of these, but you can go on the YouTube channel and there is videos of each one of these. But these be some of my favourite ones. So single leg deadlifts would be right up the top there, single leg squats with them, split squat, I like that, single cable push, it's an excellent exercise for the anterior sling, single dumbbell chest press, cable pull, single leg, single arm cable pull, that's another great one, that's the posterior sling. Single arm dumbbell chest shoulder press with twist, the lunge with the one arm shoulder press, that was one of the longitudinal slings. The step up, very simple but very effective. Hopping drills, box jumps and death jumps, they're all great exercises that will develop incredible strength and power in a unilateral focus, which will transfer to a lot of things that people are looking for. So if you have any questions or comments, just check us out on our website. There's heaps of free reports and specialised reports as well for specific things if you've got injuries in knees or shoulders and whatnot. So you can go to our website and you can check out the description underneath. There's links there that'll help you out. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video, and we'll see you